Our focus, there is a big update in Ahmedabad Air India plane crash investigation. More than 1 year after the crash, there's still no clarity on what really led to it. And now we're learning that Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, that is AAIB, has told the Supreme Court that cockpit voice recording and other key evidence in this case from the day of the incident cannot be made public. The agency has told the court that Indian law does not allow the release of these recordings or other sensitive investigation material. It also told the court that keeping this information confidential is very important to ensure that a fair and independent investigation takes place, and that will also meet the international aviation rules. So that is what AAIB has told the court, that they cannot submit the evidence in this case because that would be that would amount to flouting of the Indian as well as international law. In fact, the statement comes in response to a plea seeking a court-monitored independent probe into this crash case. Harish is joining us live on the broadcast with more details. Harish, do take us through more details about what really happened in the Supreme Court. In the latest, we are learning that there's no clarity on what really led to the crash, and now AAIB telling the court that it cannot divulge the evidence in this case, what they have found so far, because that would be against the law. All right, we'll try and reconnect that line with Harish once again, but let me once again take you through what has happened as far as the Supreme Court is concerned. This matter is in the Supreme Court. In fact, the plea has been filed seeking a court-monitored independent probe as far as the crash case is concerned. Let me go back to Harish on this. Harish, could you take us through what happened in the Supreme Court yesterday? We are learning that AAIB apprised the court that it cannot submit the evidence because that would be against the law, but still there is no clarity on what really led to the crash, and it's been more than 1 year.
Yes, that's right, Akanksha. A very significant affidavit filed by the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, because, this was precisely the demand made by Pushkar Raj Sabharwal, the deceased Captain Sabharwal's father, who had sought an independent probe. Apart from that, the Federation of Indian Pilots also exactly demanded this, saying that that independent committee should be submitted the this cockpit voice record and also airborne record, but the AAIB says that statutorily it is prohibited. It says that under section 17(5) of the Aircraft Accident Investigation Rules, they are statutorily prohibited from supplying these items. And also, apart from that, AAIB says that also the witness statements, stakeholder statements, and also conversation between officers of the involved in the air operations, and also personal and private information as far as the victims of the air crash cannot be given to any outside body. Significantly, however, the AAIB affidavit says that the final draft report will be submitted around October 2026. And on the delay, why the delay? The affidavit says it is because the passengers of several of various nationalities had died in the crash, and also even the investigation team comprises of nationals of various countries, and ensures that a free and fair probe will be conducted by the AAIB. Akanksha, coming to the affidavit once again, the AAIB says that why this protection is because it is to protect the independence of the investigators. Apart from that, to also various, it is obliged by, in fact, there are just various, it is also bound by the various international treaties and to comply with various international obligations.
All right, so Harish, we are learning that the next hearing will be on Friday, so it remains to be seen whether the Supreme Court will be accepting this argument by AAIB. Thank you so much for connecting with us and putting that into perspective. Let's also tell you about what happened in the Supreme Court and what AAIB told the Supreme Court when it comes to the crash probe. First is that when it comes to the investigation, declaration number 1 is that CVR, that is cockpit voice recording, cannot be shared because that goes against the law, is what the declaration number 1 is. Let's move on and tell you more about this, that there's prohibition on sharing the cockpit recording. They're saying that Indian law does not allow it, and it also goes against international law as well. CVR, that is cockpit voice recording and airborne image recording, has been protected. They have the evidence, but they cannot show that to the court. Protection ensures witnesses' candor, that witnesses in this case also remain protected. CVR protection preserves no blame probe process. So that remains to be seen what it really has. But for now, AAIB has told the court that in fact, they will not be divulging the probe details. The argument that AAIB has given for not divulging the evidence is in this case's investigation follows the global norm. So it has to do not just with the Indian law, but international aviation rules as well. Governed by Aircraft Investigation Rules 2025 is what AAIB has told the Supreme Court. So these are the arguments that the agency has given to the Supreme Court for not giving any evidence in this case. But 1 year later, we still have no clarity as to what really happened and what led to the crash. Argument number 3 is confidentiality is mandatory under Rule 17. So they've cited rule to say that they cannot divulge the information. Disclosure could hurt the future probe, the witnesses in this case as well. Safety probe, not blame fixing the aim. So they do not want to put the onus on anyone, put the blame, and that is perhaps one of the argument. Transparent investigation process is needed. So this is what has happened in the Supreme Court, and we're learning so far that the next hearing will take place on Friday. It remains to be seen whether the Supreme Court will in fact admit this argument that has been given by AAIB.